I started making an audiobook for the Shimmering Sea, which was the Robin Williams story. And as I read the audiobook, I hated my first try and I just trashed it. And I decided to do a little bit of research on Robin Williams. See, Robin Williams is a man that I've never had any brain-to-brain communications with. And so I it was a bit of a challenge for me to write him and also to act his part. When I'm a voice actor and reading my book, The Shimmering Sea, which is told in his point of view. So I decided I needed to do a little bit of research. See, I've had brain-to-brain communications and loving with Brent Spiner, Matthew McConaughey, Hugh Jackman, Gerard Butler, and Judge Terry Jenkins. 96% of my brain-to-brain loving is with Brent Spiner, but Vladimir Putin gets the next most after him. And then, like, I had some brief times with Gerard Butler, Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey was mostly in 2005, though I did give him some brain-to-brain loving around 2008. He was getting really depressed because of Camilla Alves, and Gerard Butler, who is a psychiatrist, he was my brain-to-brain lover, and when I was communicating with, I think that was around 2010, and he said, Gail, please give Matthew some brain-to-brain loving. He's very depressed because of Camilla Alves' rape of him. And so I did, and that saved Matthew McConaughey from, I think he was even thinking of suicide. So Camilla Alves has really devastated Matthew McConaughey. The real Matthew McConaughey. There's a clone out there that she parades around with, and he's just a vulgar Jesuit, and he doesn't have the real Matthew's sensitivity and gentleness. So anyways, I've had some brain-to-brain with Matthew, so it was not that challenging for me to get into character him, to write about him, and to read. If I do an audiobook, I'll be able to get into him pretty good. Brent Spiner, I've had so much brain-to-brain with him that it's been really... Oh, by the way, Jesus, the Eternal Bridegroom is finished, the audiobook, and ACX has accepted the file. I had to do 2 tries. The second try they liked. And it will be coming out probably in the middle of June sometime. And I also did an audiobook on a short story I wrote called Emerald Towers, which has also been accepted by ACX. So that's going to be coming out about the middle of June. So I started on The Shimmering Sea, which is my Robin Williams, like a novella. And I hated my first try, like I said. So I did some research, and I decided that I needed to watch Robin Williams' Academy Award-winning performance, Good Will Hunting. And I rewatched a movie that I have in my library, The Dead Poets Society. Because even though I haven't had brain-to-brain with Robin, when he died, when he was murdered in August 2014, Jesus did allow him to speak to me from heaven for about 2 weeks. And it was the real Robin Williams. And my friend Jane Agnew she was writing me, and then Robin from heaven started talking to me, and he was flirting with Jane at the same time as talking to me. And, it was just, he's a real kick, he's a real kick. So I got to know him a little bit in August 2014 from heaven. But then Zack Knight started impersonating him, and Jesus said, I've got to cut it off, Gail. He spoke to me through Brent Spiner. He said, Gail, I've instructed Robin not to talk to you or your men anymore. And he did speak to my men at Church of Gail from heaven. Jesus allowed him to speak. And my men asked him, do you have any regrets that you tried to marry Gail? Yes, as hard as it is to believe, apparently he did buy a $2 billion ring, and he was planning on flying from Los Angeles to Florida, where I live, and he was going to propose to me. I'd never communicated with him at all, so that would have been a total shock. I guess he went for $2 billion ring. How he could afford a $2 billion ring, I don't know, but he's a rich celebrity, so I guess he had the money. And I mean, I don't think I'm worth a $2 billion ring, but, apparently this is what he really did. This is what Brent Spiner told me when I was communicating with Brent on Skype. I guess because I'd never had any brain-to-brain communications with him, he figured if he wowed me with a $2 billion ring that I couldn't turn him down. He didn't tell my men about this because he knew they would say, no, Robin, if you do this, the Jesuits will kill you. And that's exactly what happened to him. And if you get my book, The Shimmering Sea, it goes into that. What it was that made him want to take that daring leap. And he was just so frustrated playing the Jesuit game with this Susan Schneider, who I believe actually was part of the murder. It's a brilliant Jesuit cover-up, and it's just not fair to Robin that the Jesuits have lied about him and tried to make. He was so brave, so heroic to try to marry me that I think he knew he was taking a big chance. He wasn't suicidal, but he was depressed because of penis torture that the Jesuits put my men through. And that's all in the book, The Shimmering Sea. But what happened in June 2014 to my men, it really had an effect on Robin. He had a balloon penis. And Jesuit technology is so advanced, they can do some really bizarre and perverted stuff. And it kind of, guys really care about their manliness. And it just kind of hit them where it really hurts a guy. Men don't like somebody messing with their penis. That's a real sensitive area for a guy. That's kind of like his macho, And for the Jesuits to do this to him, I think he needed to just prove to himself that he was a man. And that's why he did that. Anyways, I started watching Good Will Hunting to try to get into the soul. Usually when an actor who has an Academy Award winning performance, there's a lot of the real actor in there. So I watched that to try to get into the heart and soul of Robin Williams so that I could make a good audiobook reading his lines. And I watched that movie and I cried. The performances were so brilliant, and it had a really profound effect on me. It was like the Lord was saying, Gail, that main character in that movie is Zack Knight. Good Will Hunting, if you haven't seen it, it's a really good movie, and it's the movie where Robin Williams won an Academy Award for his performance as this therapist for this genius guy who was going into crime because he was abused when he was young. So Jesus seemed to tell me, Gail, Zack Knight, the Antichrist, is a lot like the Will Hunting character in that movie. And I thought, wow, I've never seen Zack Knight this way. He's just so evil, and you think of him as this cold, calculating Jesuit ruler who's the Antichrist. And Jesus has said many times that he's an evil man. But there is a Jesuit woman named Rule 13 who is genuinely in love with Zack Knight. Jesus said it's the real thing. He said if Zack Knight could accept it, he could find true love through Rule 13 if he would accept that. You say, well, why wouldn't he accept it? That's crazy. Well, as a result of watching Good Will Hunting, and I started talking with my Facebook friend, Charlene. She's one of my Canadian Facebook friends. And she has been a fan of Robin Williams most of her life, and she connected with me on Facebook because of the book I wrote about Robin Williams. And she wrote a critique at Amazon of my book. She gave it a 4-star. The reason she gave it a 4-star instead of a 5-star is because she said, I wish it was longer. She said the book was good, but she wanted to get more of Robin Williams. She's a real fan of his. So you know what? I told her that I was going to write another book with Robin Williams' point of view, which is going to be a sequel to The Shimmering Sea with Robin Williams from heaven. And I'm going to pattern it kind of after the Good Will Hunting movie, where Robin Williams is going to be a therapist for the Antichrist Zack Knight, and he's going to go into his heart and soul. And in the book, he's going to have to choose between Rule 13 and Satan. And I'm going to have to go really, really deep into, you may say, well, yeah, but you understand the Jesuit order, the Jesuits are considered the elite of the Roman Catholic Church. I've been doing some research on this for this book. And to be a Jesuit, you have to take a vow of obedience. You may say, what about the vow of chastity? Chastity, these Jesuits are like sex perverts. They're going around like, I think because they are considered the military of the Roman Catholic Church, Satan, who is the actual head of the Roman Catholic Church, by the way, but that's the only people who know that are the Jesuits. They keep that a secret from the rest of the Roman Catholic Church so they can fool and deceive everybody into thinking that the Roman Catholic Church is the true church that has apostolic succession going all the way back to Peter, and that they are the church, you know. And like I said, my next book's going to be going really deep into this stuff, into why a person would want to become a Jesuit or a priest in the Roman Catholic Church, and how Zack Knight ended up getting into the role of the Antichrist and the qualities he had in his life. It's really, it's a tragedy. Zack Knight is a tragedy. And I'm going to be exploring him that way. All I know is when I saw the movie Good Will Hunting, that movie had a brilliant screenplay. It made the main character, who was Will Hunting, seem, you actually felt sympathetic towards him. Even though he was committing crimes, he was doing evil and foolish things. They showed that because of his background as an abuse victim in his childhood, that he formed like shells around his heart, and he wouldn't be real with anybody. He always had to put on performances because he never felt he was good enough. He felt he was unworthy. And Jesus was saying, Gail, I know this may seem hard to believe, that that is Zack Knight. He says he's got all these shells around his heart. He said, I want you. And he says, I'm not going to excuse his evil, Gail, because he's chosen not to honor his good side. He's honoring his bad side. But I want you to write a book to show why Zack Knight has become the man that he is. So when you read this book, it's going to be like peeling the skins off of an onion. You know, you're going to get down, really down to the heart and core of what makes that man. I really got an insight into him after watching Good Will Hunting and after going to God in prayer. So my next book, and I already designed the cover, is going to be, the main character is going to be the Antichrist Zack Knight. The point of view character, the one who will be telling the story, will be Robin Williams. And Robin is going to not want to be his counselor because, you know, he's going to be mad at him because Zack Knight murdered Robin Williams. So this is going to be a story about forgiveness, about what is true love, and about what's important in this life. And it's going to take me a while, probably 6 months. I'm going to make this into an audiobook. I'll be working on the audiobook and the written book at the same time. Zack Knight will be the main character. It's called The Shimmering Skies, Robin Williams from Heaven. He's going to be Zack Knight's therapist. And it's also going to be kind of like a sequel to 2 books, Jesus, the Eternal Bridegroom, and the Shimmering Sea, because I'm going to be following up on what happened after Zack Knight appeared at Church of Gail, and how he seduced me is going to be in this book, and we're going to really go really deep into Zack Knight. And I think this book is going to make the Antichrist cry. I really think I'm going to be able to pull it off.